Star Wars 7x7 episode 1878 today. Well, it happened. There's new Rise of Skywalker footage that was released at the D23 Expo as part of their Walt Disney Film Showcase, and oh my, it's apparently very shocking. The footage hasn't been revealed online yet, but we'll talk about that because there are lots of folks who are sharing their impressions thereof. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, and as I said at the top, today was the big day where they had the Disney movie panel at Disney's D23 Expo in Anaheim. They had the Star Wars folks on, they actually had the cast out there, so they had Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams and Daisy Ridley and John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, etc., and you know, funnily enough, John Boyega had posted something on social saying, at D23, I'll see you like another time, or something to that effect. So he made it sound like he wasn't actually going to be there, but no, they had everybody there, pretty much. And with the exception of Ian McDiarmid, unfortunately, but you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, so a lot of different outlets have posted their descriptions of the footage that was shown at D23. It wasn't a behind-the-scenes reel. It was, they say they're working on a trailer, and they called this a sizzle reel, basically. And so here is from Jim Vojvoda at IGN. Here's the description of the shots that were shown in this sizzle reel at D23. First of all, hundreds of Star Destroyers all lined up against a dark sky in an amazing shot of First Order fleets arriving out of hyperspace. So there is that. And I have seen other descriptions saying that they're fighting with other ships, and that below, which is what it goes to next, it says, we're seeing a giant laser blast, perhaps from some super weapon off planet, shooting into the ground of whatever dark and stormy planet we're seeing. He says the laser is red, so it's probably a safe assumption the First Order is looking to make this planet toast. Another possibility, of course, is that the First Order has brought another dreadnought into play. I'm sure that the one that the Resistance blew up in The Last Jedi wasn't the only one they had. So, yeah, it wouldn't be a surprise if this is going to be an all-out battle between the forces of good and the forces of evil, that the forces of evil wouldn't bring out as many of their big guns as they possibly could. Next, they say we see fight footage of Rey, including a very cool shot of her throwing her blue lightsaber to cut through some tree trunks and then calling it back to her hand, Thor style. This is what it says in the article. Obviously, it's not, you know how Thor's hammer works, right? And it calls back, but really it's a force callback, all right? So, that's okay. So that is really awesome. And then it says, the adrenaline really starts to kick in when we see Rey and Kylo Ren fighting on a rocky outcropping beside the ocean on a watery planet. A storm is raging and they're really going at each other. It was very atmospheric and could presumably be from the end of the movie. It's also the scene depicted on the new poster released at D23. And the new poster released at D23 actually depicts not a natural feature upon which Rey and Kylo are fighting, but it actually depicts them on a bit of wreckage, basically. So it could be starship wreckage, and it could be the case that wherever this fight is going on, that there may be a fight happening between First Order and Resistance capital ships and fighters up in the sky, and wreckage is falling down on the planet, and for some reason they've ended up on some of this wreckage. And it is similar, I guess, in vein, or leading up to, tied into, however you want to put it. But the footage from Vanity Fair, where we saw in the behind the scenes reel that they showed this giant water tank that they were using for filming, and then images where you see Rey and Kylo Ren on something that definitely looks mechanical that they're standing on and fighting on. It seems like it could be tied to what they showed in this sizzle reel. There's also a voiceover from Emperor Palpatine this time around where he says, now your journey nears its end. And Jim also notes that Darth Vader can be heard breathing. I have seen different takes on what this line is, and so we're going to have to hold out for our opportunity to see it so we can see it for ourselves and hear it for ourselves. But, the notion that we're hearing Palpatine or Darth Vader, all right, Palpatine, yeah, Ian McDiarmid could be re-recording or recording new dialogue, But as far as Darth Vader breathing, that could be from anywhere or anything. And when they showed this reel at D23, they didn't just cut straight into the Rise of Skywalker footage. They also showed footage from a lot of the other movies, the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy too. So it's entirely possible that they could be integrating stuff from there. And we know that they've used footage from previous movies in the sequel trilogy, especially in The Force Awakens with the Force back vision, right? And sound effects that came from other movies. So yeah, just because you're hearing Darth Vader breathing in this movie doesn't mean that he's actually going to show up in this movie. It probably means that it'll be an entirely different scenario, whether it's another Force back vision scenario, whether it's a recording or hologram or something to that effect. It's more than likely going to be explained in some other kind of way. And then Jim notes the footage ends with the biggest shocker of the whole sizzle reel, Rey holding a red twin-bladed lightsaber looking decidedly dark side, and he wonders who's she brandishing this new blade at. Was it a vision or a dream, or has our hero really fallen from grace? And I've read other descriptions that say that this scene has her hooded, very Palpatine-like in its way, and with a red lightsaber, but only one blade ignited, and then doing that classic Darth Maul move where one blade ignites and then suddenly the other blade ignites, and by all reports, the crowd had that same footage, reaction to the footage when she lights up the second blade. It's bad enough that we're seeing an apparent dark side vision of Rey, but then also to see her load up a double-bladed lightsaber is like, super freaky. And as Jim points out, it doesn't necessarily mean for sure that she is going to the dark side of the Force. It could just as easily be a situation where she or somebody else is having a vision, a hallucination. Think back to The Empire Strikes Back and the encounter that Luke had in the tree that was very strong in the dark side of the Force, right? It could just as easily be something like that. So there's no reason to necessarily jump to any conclusions, although it is rather cool to kind of consider the possibility and what it might mean for this whole story. There have been a lot of interviews the cast conducted at D23 in the wake of this footage being shown, and I'm going to check that series of interviews out over the next couple of days to see if there's any additional information that we might learn from that, any additional insights we can glean. And as far as the actual footage itself goes, when will we get to see it in the form that we should be seeing it in? Not, shot from a weird angle on somebody's iPhone. And thank goodness some folks, are able to pull that off for us from time to time. But when will we get to see a proper copy of this? Well, I have an answer for you after the break. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. So the word on the street is that Monday, tomorrow even, we are going to be able to see that footage, that it's going to be released online. So hold your breath for another 24 hours or so, and once it goes online, I'll have a look at it, and if there are any other details to flag for you that haven't been flagged by other outlets, then we'll talk about them here on Star Wars 7x7. But for now, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.